Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening and good morning to different geographies. Today, I'm Gautam and I have Bharat with me, and we are going to do a small role play on technology that we are going to talk about. And I'm going to play the role of solution architect, and Bharat is going to play a role of the IT head of a store. And let's and Bharat, due his store is hit by pandemic and he's looking to do some technological improvements. Let's see what he has got to say about the problems that he's facing with modernization on his store.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Bharat. I'm going to talk about the first thing is on we run a kind of a brick and mortar stores right across one of the continent, and then we have a very good e-commerce presence over there. And today's discussion will focus on the problems which we are facing right now on our in store.
So, Bharat, can you tell me the kind of problems that you are facing?
Yeah, so before I come to the problem, jump down to the problem, I will just first talk about, what exactly is basically the POS machine. So typically, if you look at that, the POS journey itself is started, in 1879 era, where there was a guy named Ritti, who has started, a kind of a laundry service where he found that some of his workers who when they were working into his company, right, which is a laundry company, they were actually stealing the money. And it was very difficult for him to keep track of like how many sales happened in a day, right, and how much is the total aggregation of sales. So what he did is he actually created a kind of machine where exactly he can count that how many number of sales can happen, is happened in a day, and each sale how much it was the count. So that was the era where every sale when it happens, then you actually click on that and rotate that lever, and then you'll say, okay, this is the count where exactly the sale happened, and this much is the amount for that. So if you look at that, the next slide, where the journey from 1879 is to, if you look at the next
So,
in
yeah.
1980s, right? So where we have developed multiple sort of like devices which have scanners, printers, right? Dedicated payment machines have come, and we have a very disconnected backend machinery which is working on. So coming to the categorization of the POS, we have basically, most of the stores we run two types of POS machines. The one is that we have the self checkout, and another one is the assisted POS. So the currently what you are seeing on the screen is basically a assisted POS machine. A particular person will attend that, and he will actually serve the customers whenever the customers will want to buy something, scans it and all. So this is basically a assisted POS machine. On the next slide, you can see that there will be, there is a self checkout machine. Now, in this self checkout machine, the purpose of this machine is that how can I quickly, take out like the journey which is like happening, the customer queue. How can I quickly
Right,
short that? Can
right.
actually make the customer experience better so that there will be no longer queues, and customers can come and self checkout and they can move away. Right. So that's
So
it. That's
essentially, customer can come and make their purchases, right?
yes. And
Okay, that sounds pretty interesting,
yeah.
right? And so, tell me, that's give me a good understanding about your business, right? So let's talk about the problems that you are currently facing with your business.
So coming to the current issues where exactly we are facing in our store is that the very important problem which I hope all other vendors also, like all the other retailers also, they must be facing is the vendor lock-in. That's one of the key problem which we have right now in our store, where if you look at that, vendor gives their own locking on the OS, and you cannot actually do any kind of enhancements over there. For example,
Right.
there is a new market there is a new scanner in the market, a 2D or 3D scanner. I want to actually, to improve my customer experience, I want to,
Right.
switch to a new device, so that I would not be able to do that. Second thing is that obviously the integration scope is very limited. Because of this, again, this lock-in, it's quite difficult for you to integrate your very, very important backend, the business domain services like club card, price and promotion and all, right? It takes like ages to do and, streamline the whole process. The third is definitely coming to the higher cost of ownership, which is a very important factor. The turnaround time for any new thing, it takes very, very expensive proposition to add any new feature over there, right? And the next one is that slower time to market, which is very obvious thing, right? So where
Hmm.
obviously because of the vendor lock-in, you have to go and align with your backlog with his timelines. Is where exactly you can get that acceptance from him on which date you will get any update for any new upgradation of the device. So it will boils down to a very slower in terms of turnaround process. The last thing
Hmm.
which we are facing is that deploy and manage the centrally. That's where exactly where in my store I want to look at that. If in a store there are 50 registers are there running, right? How can I
Right.
monitor and manage each of them, right? For example, if one register is down, how do I know?
Hmm.
Because it's quite
Hmm.
difficult for me to go and figure it out, like which register is down and what is the problem. That's
Right.
those are the few challenges where exactly
Mhm.
currently we are facing.
So, based on these challenges, what are the goals that you are looking at to achieve?
Yeah, sure. It boils down to the main things which we want to achieve, as a retailer. The first thing is obviously the operational efficiency and the cost we
Mhm.
want to bring down. Obviously, when the operational efficiency increases, your cost will come down, right? So,
Mhm.
in terms of like, when we say operational efficiency, if we integrate with multiple backend services and we have this remote monitoring system, your operational
Right.
efficiency obviously will increase with the help of these
Right.
tools, right? The second thing is that agility and flexibility, where I should be able to if there is any a device or there is any new device which can actually definitely increase my customer experience, I
Mm.
would like to sort of like agile enough so that I can upgrade it to a new version, right, within a no
Mhm.
time, right? The
Got
third
it.
thing is obviously the maximize the integration. Now there are a lot of enterprise services within our IT division. They are developing like club card pricing and promotion. There are different kinds of loyalty programs which has been running in parallel, right? So we want to integrate them and we want to show those kind of like experiences like on the POS itself, right? Where exactly you can have a different kinds of loyalty cards. How do you support that
Okay.
as of now, right?
Mhm.
And the last thing,
Mhm.
not the least, how exactly we can continuously innovate with our, the registers, and how can we quickly incubate? How can we quickly do a proof of concept and create a MVP, and then we can really roll out
Mhm.
the whole process.
Okay. So, yeah, talking about the process, right? What is your current go-to live process? How does it look like? So, let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure, Gautam. So if you look at that, typically we are no different than any, the very usual process. If it's a very like 25,000 feet above, if you look at that, any new feature or any kind of new, requirement comes, it typically boils down into the three things. You have the ideation and incubation, and then you have to create a backlog. And now at present in this process, I need to align with my vendor backlog, right? And then I have to do a POC, which is a joint POC I have to do with the vendors. And three things which you can see, the first three things, they are actually kept little bigger in size because they takes a lot of time in order to do a kind of a ping pong model with the vendor, because that's where exactly the role comes in. And obviously once we are out of these three major things, then the regular cycle of that particular feature releases and the development starts, which is like MVP release, and then you
Mhm.
have the pre-prod incubation of the software which you, or the hardware which you need to run it and test
Mhm.
it and do the performance test. And then finally you need to acquire your production hardware based on the kind of performance test what you have it, and then you have to roll out the feature. So it's, if you look at that in a nutshell, it's a quite lengthy process, right?
Mhm.
The first three things are the main pain
Right.
point for me.
Right. So, yeah, again, what I also feel is that the initial three process, ideation, incubation, backlog, and POC, are something that are very time consuming, right?
Yeah.
So, what if I told you there is an architecture that can actually help you and to reduce this timeline and actually able to reduce your time into a continuous loop back of backlog, ideation, and POC, right? And so this architecture is pop architecture, which will actually shift left your entire approach. So
So
let me help you understand more about
yeah.
the feature that it gives. Bharat.
Yeah, can you
All
can
right,
you tell me about this architecture which you just mentioned? Yeah, thanks.
sure. Let me tell you about it. So currently in all the existing e-commerce sites, right, in store sites, right, you have your general POS machines, your SCO machines, your self-checkout, right? And you have an in-store server where you manage all the inventory and because of the offline purposes, right? But what you lack currently is where you could go and monitor them centrally, right? So this architecture actually gives you control over central monitoring, central deployment, and configuration management over your machines, right? So all of the things that you see on the left-hand side of the screen is actually what you already have, but what we are introducing is some minor changes over on the left and introducing this control center onto the right that will give you a very much control over the machines that you have and kind of software and hardware that you can deal with the machines, because the bigger challenge is with the hardware as well, because you have to procure new different hardware. So yeah, that's a bit about it.
Yeah, thanks. So I find that this architecture, this is a very good deployment model you're depicting here, but looks like it requires a lot of investment in terms of like procurement of those core machines, new core machines, like you're showing on the left, right, where you have self checkouts and
Mhm.
you have assisted checkouts. So
Right.
as I said in my one of the problems, right, like the total cost of like building and turnaround time, it's like it's very much high. So how do you mitigate that? What do you suggest for me?
Right. I totally agree with that, because for a business to, procure all these hardwares is very costly, and all the existing vendor hardwares are pretty costly. So this architecture can essentially go and work on your system. Your existing machines can be formatted to run a Ubuntu image on it, and it can essentially be any other operating system. But all we need on top of it is a leaner version of Kubernetes, which is K3s running on top of it, and all the drivers and applications that we are going to put on the machine will be all containerized and pushed via a Git flow mechanism using the Flux CD, right? So what you see on the right hand side is that whenever we do a code build, we build all different images. So let's say tomorrow you want to get a new scanner, you will write the code for the scanner and will push that image onto the Docker registry. And then using the control center, you just configure that you want to push this new scanner to store number X onto a register number Y. You have very granular level control of how you want to deploy different hardwares onto your store, and even progressively enhance your experience to the customer and progressively take those things, right? And because we are using GitOps, all the configuration that we are storing is not essentially done manually. It is the source of truth will remain in a Git repository where all different configurations will be in a separate repository. Whenever a change is pushed, the register will get a Git notification, a push event, and then the Flux CD will automatically update itself. So let's say if we want to push, let's say you get a new hardware, maybe a pin pad that you want to integrate, we just push the new container, and that container will automatically spawn because we are running Kubernetes on that hardware, and we'll run it. And for the UI, we are again using Electron, which will essentially gives you infinite control over the UI, what technologies you may want to use.
I really appreciate for you showing me this architecture, right? So
Mhm.
I understood the concept where you're mentioning that we use K3s, which is a kind of a very good model for orchestrating my the Dockers and the containers, I would say, and which is running various parts for the different set of like devices. So you do you mean that can I run these devices along with the device drivers within the different parts, or what
That is
is?
good.
Okay, yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah.
The last thing I would like to understand is that what is that on the bottom, the commodity hardware and the Raspberry Pi? Why Raspberry Pi?
Right. So again, as I told you, if you have a existing SCO machine, we can go and run it. Now, how best could we prove this? That because when people hear that we are going to run a small Kubernetes cluster using K3s, people get scared that is my machine going to take that load? So for the demonstration purpose, what we did, we ran this on a Raspberry Pi. Let me show you what a Raspberry Pi is. So this tiny machine, which is of a size of a palm, is a single board computer, which gives you a multiple choice of RAM, 2 GB, 4 GB, or 8 GB. We are currently using 8 GB model, and it has a ARM processor, and it supports two 4K display ports and has USB support for supporting a lot of different hardware, has inbuilt Wi-Fi and LAN connectivity, so that all your hardware that you want to put in your store, you can go and try it on this machine, and even reduce the cost on your development. So tomorrow, let's say you want to go and try this without affecting your store or procuring new hardware to set up your lab, because essentially for any new person who wants to try a custom solution onto a POS, it's very costly to pull out a new score and build their lab. So and cost effective way is to use a Raspberry Pi, which costs just a few under $100. It will cost you, and you can actually go and run the entire application on this and build your lab. You just need to buy commodity hardwares for printer, scanner, etc., and it's up and running.
That's cool, Gautam. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone, this was a quick introduction about the POP architecture. So now Bharat and I are gonna switch back our developer hat, and Bharat is gonna give a demo of the running POS application. So this was not just an architecture that we had shown, but if you can see the screen right now, Bharat is showing the Raspberry Pi. So we have put in heatsink on Raspberry Pi to avoid a heat constraint, but this is actually the Raspberry Pi, and we have a thermal printer and a barcode scanner. So Bharat is going to scan some products for us and going to show the UI, and he'll show how the receipt will print after he completes the transaction.
Okay, thanks. You can see that currently, I'll show you that within the Pi, which is, you can see that on the camera, right? Right. So I'm running basically three pods into the Kubernetes, where you can see that if I show you that. So the first one is obviously the device manager, which is controlling all the devices, and it will show the statuses of the devices, which are the like scanner or the printer, or tomorrow we can also sort of like integrate it with the Trilight. The second one is a scanner, which is basically, you can see, which is already being hooked with the Raspberry Pi, and it is running in a pod along with the driver. The benefit of this, which Gautam talked about, is that it is a K3s cluster running a separate pod for the scanner. Tomorrow, if you want to upgrade your scanner in a different pod, you can actually go ahead and span a different pod with the upgraded version of your scanner, and it's just spread it out, right? And then the third one is the printer manager, which is again with the drivers, with the printer, which you can see on the screen with the camera. So we are using a very cheap printer, which is very basic version model of the printer, running a 58 kind of a paper inside it, and it is a thermal printer, right? Now, what I can do is that I'll just show you that, as Gautam mentioned about the Electron application also, right? So let me open the VNC player. So this is my VNC, which I have actually running a kind of a remote desktop utility running inside the Pi. So I have just logged it into the Pi. You can see that. All I have to do is that I am just starting that my Electron application. It will actually go and start my Electron application. And let me switch back and look into the logs of my printer also, so that I know what is happening to my printer, what data it is coming. So and you can see that on the screen, where I have multiple barcodes which I have already taken a printout, right? And these are the barcodes which I have actually configured it into a store server where it is running on a database Mongo, and also it is running on Node.js. The moment I scan, the way it is being configured is that it will actually send a particular barcode to the Electron application through a WebSocket. You can see the moment I scanned, it is basically pushing that event, and my Electron is pulling through the product service all the items which are related to this barcode. So I can quickly scan multiple items. You can see the items are getting inside the cart. And now what I can do is, you can see, let me focus the camera on the printer. So now what I can do is, just for the purpose of demo, I'll just go and do a quick my secure checkout. You can see the items which I have added. It got a summary of those items over there. Total items we have added 4, and it is a grand total of 540. You can see on the below, extreme below, there's nothing right now being sent as of now. So the moment I say pay and print, you can see my printer has started printing that. My receipt has created, and there is a new feed which has been sent to the printer. And so this is my receipt which is being created, the first receipt of the POS and Pi. That concludes the demo, Gautam.
Yeah. So yeah, Bharat just sent us the receipt, and here it is. So this is a receipt that we took, and as you saw, this is the dev setup that we have. We have a Raspberry Pi, we have a thermal printer, and a barcode scanner. The possibilities of this entire architecture are infinite because of the way it is abstracted. So now I'll ask Bharat to talk about the now and next.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Gautam. As of now, we have actually achieved the decoupling, completely decoupling of our the K3s which we are running, on from the OS. We are running right now the OS on Ubuntu, as Gautam said. Right now, Pi do support any Windows-based OS also, which is typically the IoT versions of that, and then also any kind of the hardware if you want to attach it, it does support the various USB supports. So we are able to decouple the kind of the framework which we created it for the POS. And what will happen is that as we talked about the main important thing where we have the three processes, which is like innovation, incubation, and then sort of like creating the POCs. That cycle we will definitely it will make an impact to cut it down at time, and you give you a time to market because of the vendor lock-in. It is free from the vendor lock-in. And also we are able to create right now we are able to do the scanner and the printer, but adding a new device, it is like now a cakewalk for us. It is not that easy, that difficult for us to add any new devices because it's of the USB support, right? And then we are able to integrate, as I was showing you in the demo, the product services where exactly you can able to integrate, and by using any sort of like web sockets or any kind of REST APIs, you will be able to call those. The next thing is that on the CI/CD enablement part, where Gautam did talk about the Plug CD, where you will be able to sort of like pull up any kind of like pod if you want to span a new version of a device. Based on the configuration changes, it will just pull, and you have a your container repositories. You can use it based on your choice. It will just pull your relevant container and then deploy that particular thing inside your Pi, right? Or any other kind of a device if you like to use it. The last thing is the custom UI, where right now we are using Electron as an application, which is running, a kind of a very basic minimal version of your POS. You can make selection of your choices, whatever the kind of the UI you want to build it. Because coming to the vendor lock-in, you do have certain restrictions, right? That's the current state right now we have actually achieved. The next state will be definitely, guys, we want to actually take this as and build an accelerator around it, because working with in the retail almost like more than 10 years, there are certain requirements which definitely we are having it, and we find it with the while talking with the clients. They want to first see a proof of concept, and even some of the client have asked us, can you run this thing into the Raspberry Pi, right? And can you show me that? So the biggest advantage with this kind of model is that you just configure one thing and then take this Raspberry Pi. It's a very compact in size in the pocket, and go to the customer place and demo it. And obviously the control center is the thing which is a big thing. We need to build it, and we are on it. We will build it, and that's what we want to do it as a next step. And the last thing is that there's additional devices which we are actually thinking of configuring it, like leap motion sensor, or like any tri lights which are there, right? Or a
Or
status
a
light.
weighing scale machine so that we are able to support self checkout.
Yes.
So yeah,
Thanks, Gautam. So that's where exactly we want to go next.
the POS on Pi is coming soon on PS Code. We will be soon putting it in inner source so that we can collaborate with people, and also so that people can actually go and try this. So Bharat has something on more on this.
Yeah, thanks, Gautam. So the idea is that we do want to sort of like give away this particular image of the Pi which we have created. As part of your running on a Mac, we can actually take a boot image of the from this Raspberry Pi and create a DMG image for you to try it out. So once you actually, if you have any kind of a Pi, you can actually take up this image, and you can use this reimage your Pi with this particular image, which we can actually share it on the PS code. The moment you do that, the whole Pi and the services which exactly I have given the demo, right? It is up and running for you, and it's a matter of like for you to add new features. And even if you are dealing with some of the clients with you want to give the demo, it's quite easy and way forward. So use this. It would be quite useful in those scenarios, guys. And that's it, like from my side. Gautam, you have anything?
Thank you.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
No, yeah. So I think we are on time, so we can take some questions.
Awesome presentation, uh, Gautam and Bharat. I think one thing everybody's loved is that you yourself have asked and answered so many questions. I don't know how many more we'll get, but I still have a few. One definitely to before I come to you, I think we have something for Rakesh here. People want to get a few Raspberry Pis to start experimenting, playing along with it. Rakesh, so something which might come your way in a while. Gautam, Bharat, for you, few technical ones. So, is the data pushed through a particular cloud, AWS, GCP, Azure, or a multi Raspberry Pi does the trick?
So right now, the entire thing is running inside this Pi. The entire data service currently is running within this Pi in the same cluster. But again, because this is all configurable, we can make it run, connect through a cloud or any other service.
Any limitation of K3s when running on
Yeah.
RSPI?
Yeah, I can take this question. So K3S is basically I would say it's a lean version of the main Kubernetes. We in the morning there are a lot of discussions we had on the Kubernetes side of it, right? So it's very good for the production where you have the main services running. But K3S is mostly for the your containerization if you are running it on the edge computing, where exactly it comes by default with a size of like 40 MB or 40 to 50 MB. You can actually will be able to run everything, and most of the features like it is there. And the whole difference between the main Kubernetes and the K3S is that is everything is being bundled together into one binary, and it is easy for you to execute it on edge or a IoT machine, right? That's one of the advantage you get it. The main advantage also, another advantage you will get it is that the version, the whatever the code you have, the open source like K3S, you can actually build and compile it to any of the target to any of the architecture. Like right now we are running on the ARM machine, which is Raspberry Pi. You can target with any of the architecture. That's one of the biggest advantage in K3S.
Few people sharing the concern on the whole security aspect. POS being considered as one of the most secure application at an environment in an enterprise. So, what are different security measures to be considered? Any version which supporting Wi-Fi and Bluetooth could be a potential threat there.
Yes, definitely, and that's a very good point. We have actually we are working on this, and that's where I said we will definitely would like to add this on our next step, where we can how we can harden it with the security. But if you look at that, as we use this K3S, we can also use some of the sidecars like Istio and all along with it, where we can actually include your security and also the configurations or whitelisting and all those things, which does support that. So the main advantage of using K3S is this, where exactly you can offload your whole security and the configuration management, right?
So if we tie it back to Rakesh's talk, where he was talking about how you can manage different layers of security. So this is where we wanted to go and put in the features from Kubernetes so that things can be used from it. But one thing I would, again, Bharat and I also discussed it around Raspberry Pi was that it is not something that you would want to take to production. It is a enabler for you to go to production, right? But in the production, you would want a secure machine, which is more sturdy. But yeah, there are a lot of innovations that can be tried with Raspberry Pi. Take it about building mobile POS solution, right? Before you even take it to some place, you might want to give it a try, right? But then again, there are providers who manufactures devices from it. So for large enterprises, Raspberry Pi can essentially work as a hardware where it can be taken to a manufacturer, and the code that you have on the Pi can actually be converted to a proper module.
Yeah. To add to Gautam's point, one very important point which I would like to take on is that, uh, as correctly said by Gautam, this is not we are proposing you to take it and deploy it on the prod, right? That's not what exactly we are saying. That the main intent is that if you remember the three circles which we have depicted, right? The first thing, that ideation, incubation, and the kind of the POC, which takes a lot of time to test and try the new devices and all, right? It will cut short your that period of time, not the kind of like the thing which you will take it and deploy it in the prod. It's to
But
basically help you to find it out what is the best model and what is the best device to work for you, right?
But the solution that you will build can definitely be taken to the production environment.
Yeah.
Interesting. And a couple of more, and I'm going to merge two of them. So, how do we do incremental deployments of new features? I think you gave that answer to say we can simply take it to production and add that as a module. And
Right.
what's the value proposition for clients? How do you really scale it from where we are today?
So the first value proposition to the customer is definitely it gives you a platform for the innovation where exactly you can try and test different devices, as we said, right? That's one of the key thing. The second thing is that the thing is that it's very easy and compact. You can actually try out the new things, and you can actually show immediately to your client, this is what you have asked for and this is how exactly it will work, right? And so the time to market is the key thing, where exactly you get something new in the market, you deploy it, you test it, you build some framework or a code around it, and then you will be able to do that. And the third thing, which is like very important thing we also mentioned, is that we want to take this as an accelerator or a kind of a framework which if you take up this code and the framework, and then you can actually build and add new features which is very client specific, you want to have it, so you will get the base of it, and then you on top of it you build based on the requirements of the client what you wanted. That's where exactly I see the the value proposition for the customer.
Bharat, just to add to your point, the first thing, the problem that we discussed was currently this market is currently being governed by the vendors. So you have to go back to a vendor if you have to get any new incremental change. This architecture essentially brings that power back to you if you want to get your own as a owner of a store, right? If I want to have some custom setup done, so that flexibility this architecture provides,
Yes.
because Raspberry Pi is just a medium to accelerate the innovation, but the entire architecture is a piece that can be taken into the production and deployed on any machine
Yes.
and frees you from the vendor lock-in.
Yes. And believe me, that's not the kind of like the thing which we are making. I worked with almost the three major retail clients in the past, and all of these three clients have taken up this transformation. And it's basically from the same vendor. They have actually transformed, and they are trying right now, which I am working on, is the same vendor. They are trying to get rid of it.
And what's the life of this setup? I mean, from a hardware perspective.
The Raspberry Pi also comes now with an enterprise support. So if enterprises are buying that, so they have a module for which they are giving enterprise support. But yeah, normally it gives 1 year warranty. I have recently bought. Bharat has previously worked with Raspberry Pi, so he can talk about the life of Pi.
No, that's absolutely what Gautam said. So recently, in I think that 2 months back, 2 3 months back,
Yeah.
Pi has actually provided a production readiness. They have come up with a industrial standard, their board, which is like module, and which is right now have the minimal kind of the warranty period. But definitely, we can see that that's the way and the path which is going forward, where a lot of industries and enterprises they want to first try it out, right? And a few things, and obviously the things going forward, the if you go to any retail store, there are a lot of big POS machines are there. Everybody want a very compact size so that they can efficiently utilize the space over there, right? That's the thing which I see that.
And I'll take one last one. While there are a few more, and my request to you will be after this, you can just answer those on the Q&A box as well. So, are there any other cloud or salad solutions to do this in a virtual kind cloud environment if we expose a slew of PIs via a service model?
Currently, again, you will have to connect the hardwares through this, right? If you want to achieve it on your machine, you can build simulators that will depict on hardware. But again, you will get into this is not what we are trying to do, just to run it over the hardware, because essentially you will need a person who can, scan a barcode, or you can go and see the print. The purpose of introducing Pi is so that you can try it yourself and do those R&D and fixes.
To addition to this, as we have I think taken up the earlier question also, Vishal, uh, running this hardware, definitely you need during the time of checkout those hardware devices in place, right? So but as such, if you want, you are enterprise services, right? Obviously, with there is a hybrid cloud scenario where now we have on-premise the services which are running, and also on the cloud, right? So where if you want to integrate with any of the cloud-based services or the in-store services where within the store some services are running, right? That is very much is feasible, because right now in the demo itself, I am actually running my product service inside a Docker container, and it's a containerization. You can actually run your own cluster itself within the store if you want it, or if you are having a fallback mechanism. For example, your store connectivity is down, and you can switch off to the any of the GCP, AWS, or as your cloud provider, right? You can switch back to your the POS machine there itself. So it provides you a flexibility to take up the same code base and deploy it inside the on-premise and on the cloud, and you will be able to switch your POS in case there is a problem happened on any of the places, right? That's the advantage you will get it over with this.
That's very insightful and helpful, Bharat and Gautam. Thank you so much once again. I think a very novel way of presenting, and insightful discussions and good questions, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the evening.